welcome you with the words of Tom Sharp, of course, that if a little learning is a dangerous thing, just think what damage a lot of it could do. There will be an honorary doctorate awarded. There will be lifetime achievement awards granted. So those worthy of honour tonight will be honoured here amongst the community of knowledge and amongst their friends. So, let us say grace. Habemus, benedictus benedicat Piesum Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen. Read the citation. The Institute of Brain Chemistry and Human Nutrition. Be it known that the Institute of Brain Chemistry and Human Nutrition, on the recommendation of the Governing Council, confers upon Maniel Abdul Rahman Thabet, who has fulfilled the requirements by publication of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Gifted Educational Theory, with all the rights, honours and privileges, as well as the obligations and responsibilities thereunto appertaining. In testimony thereof, the seal of the Institute and the signature of the Director and President of the Governing Council are hereby hereunto fixed. Given the 14th day of April in the year of our Lord 2015. Professor Crawford.
Your Excellencies, Your Highness, ladies and gentlemen, it is a very deep pleasure to be here to present to Manaher this award for research. The Institute was formed in 1994 as a consequence of a convocation of a whole bunch of highly respected research leaders in the world of brain chemistry. And the reason for this was the recognition that today we are seeing perhaps the most significant challenge to humanity. The rise in mental ill health, rise in brain disorders, have now overtaken all other burdens of ill health to be equal to the total cost of both cancer and heart disease. In fact, not just the total cost, but to exceed that. And it is now being globalized. And an increase in mental ill health, as will be predicted by a continuous rise over the last 20 years, into the next 2 decades, will begin to reduce, put it bluntly, Homo sapiens without the sapiens. And it is actually a matter of very deep concern, which is below the radar of most people. Now, one of the beautiful things about Manor Hill, if I may say, is that she has organised and attempted to get promulgated across the world the concept of the gifted child. One of the things that the Institute was involved in right at the very beginning in 1972 was the discovery of the micronutrients that were vital for the development of the brain. The brain is totally different from the body. You can take a rhinoceros at the age of 4. It weighs a ton. It has a brain this size. It gets all the nourishment it needs for body growth to achieve that velocity of body growth, but is incapable of assembling the nutrients that are required for the brain. The brain evolved in the sea 500 million years ago, and the chemistry that our institute has published has shown that if you look at the first time that a photon converted, and this is quantum mechanics, the photon converted a system not into carbohydrates and proteins as done with photosynthesis before for 2.5 billion years, but now into electricity. And by converting the energy from a single photon into an electric impulse 600 billion years ago, initiated the evolution of the nervous system and fundamentally the brain. So now what we have today is a very serious problem, that instead of being dependent on what for 600 billion years has been the nourishment of the brain, we have become more and more dependent on nourishment from the land. And if you look at land mammals like the rhinoceros, every single land mammal has evolved bigger bodies, got smaller brains. And we now have evidence from Cambridge, we have evidence from Stanford, we have evidence from National Institutes of Health with Lee Broadhurst and company, that even since the beginning of agriculture 10,000 years ago, that there has been a shrinkage of the brain. Now I want to come to Manor Hill about shrinkage of the brain, because this is very interesting. You see, you have to ask a question about this shrinkage of the brain. And one of the questions I've been asking myself is that Isaac Newton was one of the leading geniuses in science of the 17th century. And Stephen Hawking was asked who was the greatest scientist. And he said, well, we have two challenges. We have Einstein and we have Isaac Newton. And he thought, well, now, how do we choose between Einstein? And then he said, well, Einstein actually stood on the shoulders of a whole bunch of people who were talking about relativity before him. But Isaac Newton stood on nobody's shoulders. At the age of 24, he not only realized that to describe the movement of the planets and everything else, it was impossible with the conventional mathematics. What he had to do was to invent a new mathematics, which was integral calculus and differential calculus and so on. And he did this at the age of 24. Now we have a problem sitting at university in our first years trying to work out how we deal with these things. But this young man invented integral calculus at the age of 24. Now, this is where we have an analogy, because here we have Manor Hill. Now, I've asked myself this question about the depreciation of brain size And what people are now talking about is the increase in adverse mental health today. And with mental health now costing the country in the UK 113,000 billion pounds, we are in a very serious position. So what we need to think about is this, that Isaac Newton in 1625 or whenever wrote this book in Latin, not in English, he wrote the whole thing in Latin. Now, if you take pro rata the increase in intelligence with increase in population, we should today have something like 12 Isaac Newtons. We should have about 7 Mozarts. So where are they? And what I put to you is that they're not there, but there are some beautiful examples of people who are there. And Manahil is one of them, because she not only had to deal with thinking about the solar system with the big and the small, but she actually had to invent her own mathematics to deal with it. And so it is with the absolute utmost pleasure, and I can think of no one more deserving of a research doctorate than Manahil Tabit. It is with our greatest pleasure we honour you. It is we who are honoured to have you as a member of our programme for the doctorate in research of science. And thank you for being with us.
And hereby I present my first copy of my thesis.
Thank you, Manahil.
I call upon you all to acknowledge this by acclamation. I formally request that you acknowledge this degree which was presented to you and accept.
I accept it with honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Raymond Keane, I call upon you to present a Lifetime Achievement Award to the 8 times World Memory Champion, Dominic O'Brien.
Our Master of Ceremonies has declared categorically that we don't have 7 Mozarts or 12 Newtons or 15 Einsteins, excuse me for the hypothetical numbers.
About 37 Bachs.
37 Bachs. Mostly in Wales. However, we are fortunate tonight in having them all here. What was that? We have our new Dr. Manahil Tabit. We have Professor Crawford. We've got my sister. We have Tony Buzan. We have many other people. We have the concentrated brain power of an entire galaxy in this room this evening. And as part of this celebration of the power of the brain, I want to honour a man who has transcended the realm of the theoretical and used his brain in the practical sphere of mental combat. And this is the 8 times World Memory Champion, Dominic O'Brien. And Dominic, I would like to present to you this piece of solid crystal, engraved by my good friend Julian Simpole, with the words, which I could read before the 5 glasses of champagne. It says, from the Brain Trust Charity, that's us, 14th of April 2015, I think that's still today. Dominic O'Brien, that's you, Lifetime Achievement Award for services of planetary brain power in the most arduous of competitive circles. Dominic, please accept this on our behalf. The Brain Trust 25th year It is yours.
Thank you very much indeed.
Well done. Thank you so much.
I'm honoured to be honoured with this fantastic award. I normally memorise decks of playing cards. This is a one-card deck. So I'm going to break the record now for memorising a one-card deck in the fastest time. Ace of Spades. That's not the demonstration. If you look at the mission statement of the Brain Trust, it says something along the lines of helping to unlock and deploy the vast capacity of the human brain. And when you're trying to achieve something in life, it's a lot easier when you actually enjoy what you're doing. And this memory journey has been one hell of a journey for me in the last 28 years. It's been very easy for me to do what I'm doing. And one of the things I'm trying to accomplish was with Tony and Ray. We co-founded the school's memory championships some 8 years ago now. We've crowned 7 champions. And with the help of General Secretary Chris Day and the world mind mapping champion Philip Chambers, we have crowned 7 champions. We also produced Memory Slam. We televised a new format for the school's memory championships, where we reduced the 500 best students in the country down to 8 and then down to 1. And we're hoping to syndicate this around the world. Phil Chambers has just come back from Egypt, where we set up the school's memory championships there. We also went to South Africa a couple of years ago. And in the next week, we hope to be setting up the school's memory championships in India. So we've got a lot of work to do. But the reason I got involved with this was because I saw a man on television called Creighton Carvello memorize a deck of cards in 2 minutes 59 seconds, and I wanted to know how he did it. And unfortunately in 1987 I didn't find Tony's books, so it would have saved me a lot of time, but I had to develop a system myself. And I developed a strategy which I thought was unique. Later on I found was developed by the Greeks from 2,500 years ago. And it forms the basis of what we teach now to children in schools. And you'll find the top 100 memorizers in the world, they all use this technique that goes back to Greek times. So I want to do a little demonstration, because I think it's only fitting, as we're at a banquet, to talk about a famous Greek poet who was born in the 5th century BC, called Simonides of Chaos, or Sios. Yes, some classicists said, they might correct me on it. Chaos, yes. And if you think about it, in Greek times they were living in an oral tradition, so memory was vitally important, and the role of poets in society was paramount, to be able to remember reams, long verses. And Simonides was a brilliant poet, and he was invited to a banquet similar to this in honor of the nobleman Scopas. And he stood up and recited some poetry in honor of Scopas, but he also gave a couple of verses to the gods Castor and Pollux. And when he sat down, the nobleman Scopas felt a little bit jilted, because he felt he shouldn't have shared the limelight with these gods. And he said to Simonides, well, I'm only going to pay you half your fee. If you want the rest of it, you'll have to go and get it from the gods Castor and Pollux. Now this was somewhat prophetic, because later on during the meal, Simonides, and I hope this doesn't happen this evening, was asked, he got a message from 2 men that were waiting outside, wanted to see him. So he made his excuses and left. And the moment he got out of the building, and don't worry, this is not going to happen this evening, the building collapsed. And unfortunately, all the guests perished. It was a very sad occasion for the relatives, because the authorities had an impossible job trying to identify all the guests. Enter Simonides with his fantastic memory system, because he'd memorized all the guests and the exact positions at the table. So he was able to identify all the guests. So he was compensated by the gods Castor and Pollux many times over for surviving the deal.
a silence for Professor Crawford.
I just want to end this wonderful pageant of speeches and enjoyment of the brain with two thoughts. One is the crisis of disintegration of mental health we're seeing today. The other is Manor Hill's devotion to gifted children. And I'll put it as simply as this, that I think the dream that Manor Hill and I share through science is it is possible for one day to have all children gifted. Thank you.
We have to return grace. May I ask you to rise and we will return grace with Laude Spirituale. For these and all thy mercies given, we bless and praise thy name, O Lord. May we receive them with thanksgiving, ever mindful in thy word. To thee alone be honor, glory, now and henceforth forevermore. Amen.
May I propose the health of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II?
The toast is the Queen.
The Queen. Some time ago, Raymond asked Katrina and I whether we would be patrons for the Brain Trust. And it was a very simple request, and the answer was very simple too. We agreed almost immediately. We had a talk about it. And my thought was, custodiaris, consortio judicaris. We are judged by the company we keep. And this is very relevant for the amazing people in this room. So I think we can all appreciate that we are judged by the company we keep. When we keep company with people, we tend to take on their values, and we learn from them as well. And it can be a very positive thing, and also sometimes a very negative thing as well. So my father, Prince Leon Stanisław, was a man of principle, like many of you people here. He saw the value of education. To illustrate this, he spoke 9 languages fluently, including Latin. I don't think he'll be very happy with the way I said Custodio Consortio Judicaris, because I'm reading it and I'm not doing it very well. So he was a man, an amazing man, and with my father in mind, we struck the Prince Leon Stanisław Medal, and it's this medal I would like to award tonight, and a few special people in this room. I think virtually everyone in this room deserves a medal. My baggage allowance wouldn't allow it. So maybe another time. So I'd like, first of all, to call Dr. Manahel Thabet. Love you to accept this on behalf of Petrina and myself.
Thank you. First of all, I'm speechless, actually, literally speechless. I'm overwhelmed by the hospitality of everybody here. I'm honored by the PhD, thrilled by the speech you've done. I did not expect it, to be honest. This PhD actually is a very long due PhD. It represents my journey as a gifted individual. And I hope that this could be the voice for every single gifted individual globally. It's the book of law of how to take care of those who are gifted and talented. It's the fundamentals for governments and policymakers, decision makers, to how to set laws, regulations, educational systems to take care of those who are gifted and talented. We are now marching towards a knowledge-based economy, an intelligence era, and only those with great brains can take us and lead us to a safer harbor. I would like to thank Prince Merrick, Princess Katrina, for their white swan yesterday, which I'm heavy loaded with it today. I'm really honored and privileged to be within the family. And I would like to thank Dr. Crawford for being my mentor, my educator, my teacher. Thank to Grandmaster Ray for his support and his family, the King family. Thank to Tony Buzan, thank to Dominic O'Brien, thank to Christopher, to Derek, to my colleagues here who came from all the way from Dubai. I'd like to thank everybody who stood by me, who believed in me. My journey took a lot of persistence, resilience, and patience. And those three characters is in the camel I give each one of you. So I thank you for sharing a special moment for me, with me today. And I'm really honored and privileged, and rather it's a big responsibility now to carry on being an advocate for those who are gifted and talented. This is not the end. Actually, this is the beginning for a new journey to come. Thank you.
We do have, our family does have a medal, the Prince Leon Stanisław Medal, and I'd like to present that to you tonight, just by recognition by Katrina and I of the greatness of your person. So, there it is there, and there is an inscription on the back.
Oh, beautiful.
I call upon Tony to give a brief response.
You may call upon it, and it shall not occur.
It will occur.
It will not.
It will indeed.
It will be brief according to Salvadorian time. I truly appreciate that. Then a special thank you, and a special thank you to you. On the screen at the back is the launch of a new work based on a traditional work, and that introduces synapsia. And it shows, in my life so far, the most beautiful sequence of synaptic images, which capture the essence of the connection, the communication, the radiation of intelligence in the brain. And my dream, many, many years ago,
was to create a journal called The Brain Journal. And I was trying to think of a title. The Brain Journal sounds pretty dull, pretty boring. The Brain Journal, the Brain Magazine. And I was trying to find the word, and with discussion with friends, Synapsia came out as the magazine. And that lasted for 10 years, quarterly issues, and there were contributors to Synapsia who included top brains from around the world. A regular contributor was Professor Michael Crawford on the brain and nutrition in the late 1980s, saying things that even now are just beginning globally to be said. Grandmaster Raymond King wrote regular columns on mind, sports, and intelligence. Lorraine Gill wrote articles on art being the natural function of the human brain, and indeed. So by 2000, I began to no longer produce it, because there were other things to do, and paper was difficult. Out of the blue, a most astonishing surprise came, inspired by Ray and inspired by our co-host, our real prince, who in Sydney discovered all that and found that that could be made digital. And he organizes the IT department at Sydney University. And he just thought, we will make that real. We will make it new. And would you kindly just say what you actually did, what it now is?
Thank you. What Ray's vision was to start a digital version of Synapsia. And the first stage of that was to offer all the old versions in a digital format. So that's what I did. I did a very simple job. It wasn't difficult. And that was to scan all the magazines and create them in a PDF format so they can be downloaded immediately from the website. So the website has a homepage which tells people who are not familiar with Synapsia what it is about. We have a little bit about the Brain Trust as well, because that's integral with Synapsia. And then we have a page that has every single journal that was produced, now available on the internet live at synapsia.net, and it can be downloaded. There's also a contact page, so if people wish to start engaging again with Synapsia, they can make contact. But thinking on the very long journey from Australia, with not a lot to do, I thought that perhaps we could start developing phase 2. And that is to create some pages that encourage people to start contributing again and making this magnificent magazine truly great. We can now take ideas and thoughts from people all over the world in an instant. They're in a digital format, so they can be rearranged and edited by Ray and his team, and then very regularly at no cost to be put on the website and available for people to use. I absolutely insist that any work I do on this is pro bono, in the true spirit of what we hear about tonight.
Hooray!
The wonderful achievements of
I would like to call Raymond King to also receive the medal for his excellent work.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, those of you who know me will realise that I like to plan everything in meticulous detail in advance. And I don't always tell everyone what I'm going to do, but I expect what I've planned to happen according to the schedule and strategy that I've outlined. But I'm afraid you completely shocked me. I wasn't expecting this at all. It's absolutely ultra vires. I thought that I'd fixed everything for Manaher, I thought I'd fixed everything for Tony. I hadn't got the faintest bloody idea you were going to give one to me as well.
You deserve it,
I'm
honestly.
absolutely shocked, flabbergasted, and deeply honoured. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
The formal part of the evening is ended.
I can now give my speech. My actual talk tonight is to celebrate the launch of Synapsia, of the new one, and I personally really want you to contribute on a quarterly basis anything that you have to do with mental literacy and with improving intelligence around the world. I also want to thank the new doctor. It's the third doctor. And Manahel has studied global mental literacy and synapsia and every book that I've ever written, and has analyzed, and we have had astonishing conversations on intelligence. A surprise for me tonight was the thesis. As you know, Professor Crawford anointed this. In the back of it, at the end of a thesis, there are always pages and pages and pages of footnotes, references, etc. In the back of this one, it is not the end. The end are two beautiful mind maps on the nature of intelligence and helping teach all children around the world how to be both intelligent and gifted. And it applies the thesis in memory of von Restorff and recency. We remember that which outstands, and we remember the final things. So this entire thesis is based on global mental literacy and giftedness. It's something extraordinary. And Manahel has gathered together. She's been like a neutron star, gathering all the highly intelligent, gifted, genius individuals, and has investigated intelligence. And in Synapsia, you will be able to read, because what also you can do is read every page of every issue. So the Prince has actually done something really significant. Every single page you can read. And you will find the 5 times World Memory Champion has written articles in that. So you will find everything that Sue has also said. Many of you have written in it. Dominic O'Brien features in it and on the cover. So tonight, one of the beliefs I have had and still have is that IQ does not work. IQ does not measure real intelligence. And one of the first triggers that drove me up the wall was a child, 9 years old, given an IQ test, and was asked the question, cross out the culture-free picture. And there were 4 pictures, and she had to cross out the wrong one. There was a picture of coal, there was a picture of a coal mine, there was a picture of a yellow daffodil and a picture of a shovel. And she had to cross the odd one out. Now, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, princes, what is the one you need to cross out which is different? Ladies and gentlemen, what is the one you should cross out? The one that is different? Pile of coal, a coal mine, a yellow daffodil, and a shovel, which is the odd one out.
It looks like a daffodil, but it can't be because that's too obvious.
That's too obvious,
The
yeah.
others are all connected
Must
with
be
the
coal.
As well, it's the Welsh symbol.
Yellow daffodil, according to the IQ tests, was the one.
Oh dear.
This little girl crossed out the pile of coal. And she was asked, you know, why did you cross that out? Your IQ is being marked down. So the committee marked it down. And it was marked down because she didn't choose the correct wrong. When she was asked in more detail, she was asked, you know, why did you do it? She got very shy, very embarrassed, and said, I thought I was supposed to cross out the daffodil, but I thought it was a beautiful picture. It was a pretty picture, and I didn't want to destroy it. So I crossed out coal instead. Who was more intelligent? The little girl who didn't cross it out, or those who made it up and said she was stupid? Quite obvious, she was more intelligent.
Yeah.
She was alert. There was no process examined in her real intelligence. So, with hours and days of conversation with Manor Held, and it is in this bag, we are going to launch tonight a new intelligence test, a human intelligence test, not just the simple little numbers and shapes, but that. That is a mind map drawn by Dr. Fabet. And every branch contains the main elements of intelligence. The social intelligence, the creativity, the innovation, the logic, memory, every item, the physical, the senses, and the new human IQ test, or intelligence test, is going to be done with a mind map. So as they do the test, there will be multiple levels and extensions from it, will radiate from it. And Manor has named it BIQ, which means
Busan IQ.
Busan IQ. And it's a gorgeous thought, because from now on, real intelligence, not all the fragmentary parts of the capacities of the brain, are now going to be merged and will connect and synergize. So I'll pass this around. Please have a good in-depth thought. Please give me and Manor any thoughts on this, because it is a new human language IQ test, real intelligence. And the team here tonight, I know nearly every one of you quite well, and you are intelligent, and this is what it is, and all of you manifest it, and therefore are warriors of the mind. So thank you, Prince. Thank you, everybody, for being sublimely intelligent. Please contribute, contribute, contribute to the ongoing renaissance of synapsia, and please spread intelligence around the world. And my maps are the flowers of intelligence. And this team, this family, can populate the planet with the flowers of intelligence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.